Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to the Always Right podcast. I am my co-host, Jamie Vendera, and my other co-host. Yeah, I'm your co-host. I did that on purpose because I told you I don't like starting these. And you are.
But you do such a great job. I'm
I-
author Carissa DeLay.
I'm too clowny. You're like very professional.
Not all the time.
So,
Because I'm being
that's when we're
recorded.
off camera. When we're not recording, we're both
Yes.
clowns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
today we're discussing, and we told you this a couple weeks
2
ago
weeks
that
ago,
we
yeah.
were going to discuss the difference between a synopsis and a summary. So, which one do you want to explain? I'll explain the other one.
So basically, it's kind of like we're gonna. What are they? They're two tools that you can use, and we talked about this with query letters. Some agents will require that you add a summary or they add a synopsis. So you must know the difference before you submit, because if they ask for a summary and you submit a synopsis, they're gonna be like they don't know the difference. Or if they ask for a synopsis and you submit a summary, they're gonna be like they don't know the difference. So they
Correct.
didn't do their research. So you've got to know there is a key difference. The key difference between a synopsis and a summary is length and detail. So two key factors. Do you want to talk about which one's which?
Yeah, so synopsis was much longer than a summary, and it's very detailed. And this is a situation where, if you're submitting it could be to the film industry, it could be to the public industry. If you're wanting to get your idea across, the film idea you have or the book you have, with a synopsis, it's very detailed and explains characters, the character arcs, the plot twists, and it does reveal the ending. This is no spoiler alert. When you're doing a synopsis, you want to really go through that book or that film idea that you have so that they understand beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. And for me, I feel like you have to understand your book really well to be able to differentiate between the two, that you can go more expansive on giving out details for a synopsis, but at the same time you know your book well enough to shorten it into a summary, to be able to know what the key points are, to shorten that idea, to be able to know that the level of detail as far as lengthwise, what is important.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like if you're a book reviewer or you're a movie reviewer. So you're kind of, you love this new movie or this book and you're summarizing it and telling the basic points, but you're not getting into the characters and how they develop, and you're most certainly most of the times not revealing the ending. You don't want to have a spoiler alert, and that's to me the big difference between the two. You already said it: length and detail.
Right. Yeah, and typically, if agents and publishers are going to ask for a synopsis, your summary is going to be more of like your general readers. It's more of like other types of people that you may be trying to submit that to get people to read it, or even like a book, like a library of sorts. Like, this is what my book's about. Can I do a book signing, or can I do a whatever? Like, for the most part, synopsis is the one you really, really want to hone in on how to do, because that, if you're trying to get published, is going to be the thing that's required to go and be attached to your query letter.
This is probably a bad example, but it kind of reminds me of Cliff's Notes. And you go to Kindle now, and there'll be like some big 500-page book, fiction or nonfiction, and you'll find someone who, they call it a summary, but it's more like a synopsis. It may be a 20-page Kindle booklet that really breaks down all the highlights so you understand that. Whereas a summary is like, if I'm like, hey, Carissa, did you see the new Spider-Man movie? Oh, let me tell you a little bit about it. And I've only got like a minute to throw out and get you engaged in it. So
and a synopsis would be like, not only did you watch a Superman movie or a Spider-Man movie, but did you watch all of the things that opened up this Marvel universe?
Exactly.
There's a whole, like, what brought you to that point.
And it's more professional too. It's like, this is a very standardized professional synopsis. It may be, I don't know how long it could be. It could be 3 to 5 pages long, if not longer.
Right. And in the synopsis, typically an editor will say, give me 3 pages or give me 5 pages. Stick to that parameter. Do not give them 6. Do not give them 4. Stick to that length, because they want that. If they ask for 2 to 3 pages, give them 3. If they ask for 3 to 5 pages, give them 5. Just because it's showing the meat of your book, and it gives you more time to fill in and give more better detail. But at the same time, this is not the space to talk about yourself.
Correct.
This is where you talk about your book. And something when I was writing my synopsis for Crystal Gate was I took and basically broke down the chapters for each paragraph. Some of the times I would take 2 chapters to kind of combine what was happening in that general idea. Um, but I said, oh, I kind of laid it out like what's happening. I wrote an outline for myself. Um, what was happening with the characters in the beginning, da 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 da. What was happening in the middle, da 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 da. And then in that section, I put the plot twist for it. So you can almost go like that, like the beginning chapters, summarize that into a paragraph. The next few chapters, summarize that into a paragraph. So if you have like 30 chapters, you could probably have 30 or less small paragraphs to do your synopsis. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So, but with a summary on the flip side, we talked about this in the query letter, that query letter has those 3 to 5 paragraphs in the middle of your email that describe the book. So you kind of do the build up, the plot, and the conclusion. So a summary is almost an expansion of that, typically a page to a page and a half, 2 pages. So you can get a little bit more detail than your query letter, but then your synopsis is more detailed. You want to give more character detail, who the character is. So in your summary, you may not be giving like as much detail. You might like, I have a quantum physicist, and she's the daughter of the lineage of Eve that has been handed this crystal that unlocks Eden. But in my synopsis, I may say she's not only the daughter of Eve, she is like, I might go into a little bit more detail that she is like, I don't even know. My brain just went. Bleh.
Well, I mean, it boils down to this with the synopsis. It's really targeted. That's a situation where you're trying to sell the entire story. So
Yeah, the characters and the storyline.
how do you sum up a 300 or 400 page book in, whatever their submission guidelines are? Like you said, it could be 3 pages, 5 pages, so
Mm-hmm.
that you hit every major detail and they know the beginning, the meat, the end. It's not a place for filler. Like if you're watching Happy Gilmore, I think it was the other one, Billy Madison. So the puppy, when he's giving that speech on stage, and the guy's like, "I am now dumber for having listened to you." That was a scroll that came in. It's got to be concise, right to the point, no filler. Every line counts. So you may be spending quite a bit of time on writing this synopsis so it
Right.
meets that
The
standard.
little tertiary stories that you throw into your book don't matter, but the main story arcs are important. The emotional things that you may put in there, like the connection between characters, like this that's where my brain farted moments ago. Instead of like in the summary, I would say this is a quantum physicist, blah blah blah. She is like working for the US Air Force, and she's doing this. But I may not put in there that she's also being pursued by the devil, that there's a love connection. I may not do all that in my summary, but in my synopsis, I will divulge that more, like that, how they're connecting. Like they're going to connect this way, and then this is kind of like I'm tying this in this way, and then bam, this happens. And then this sets off a series of events that takes this in this direction and takes that in that direction, and then it all comes together here. And I'm putting all these little details in there to explain what's going on, not tertiary details like, oh yeah, and I made sure that the water was blue. No, those are not the details you're asking for. The details we're asking for is like the connecting pieces that ties this all in together, so that way they know that your story is flowing. Because if you're writing a synopsis and it seems like it's all over the place, your book's probably all over the place too for them.
Yes, it's gotta have a timeline. It's gotta work
Yeah.
right from beginning to end. So don't get excited and jump from
Mm-hmm.
key point to key point. Know your book. I mean, as an author, I know you've written the book, but I've written so many books that I could not give a synopsis on any of them. I have to go back and read it and know the detail. So if you're writing a synopsis, You might want to write it side by side as you're rereading your own book, because you could forget at some point, or
Yeah.
get a print version, highlight it,
Yeah.
highlight the
Yeah.
key points.
Key points. You want to make sure major turning points, overall narrative. Don't worry about, like I said, don't worry about those subplots. Don't worry about those minor characters. Don't worry about those things when you're trying to write your synopsis. It's the details that include main characters, introducing them to the editor, who they are, and if who they are is important to the storyline. You know what I mean? Is their job important? Like with Alexis in my Crystal Gate book, it is important who she is because she has a connection to the Air Force and what takes her to different locations. It is important. Um, and you don't have to say the U.S. Air Force because she works as a research quantum physicist, and her job takes her to this point. And it's like creating all this timeline across the globe, and doesn't realize that she's following a path that takes her back to Eden because she starts uncovering all these locations that have certain types of energy. There's what she does is important because she's a quantum physicist, so she understands why these energies would be working. At the same time, I make sure that when you're doing that, like there's some sub characters in there that don't matter. There's subplots that don't matter. I put those in the book for maybe down the road, but they're not important to the main storyline at that point. I don't have to divulge that part. The main clear structure of your story is what is important.
Correct.
Correct.
It's time for some water.
Organize your synopsis, like a storyboard. I feel like we've talked about storyboards before. To create a brief introduction, and you want to make sure you're expressing what the main conflict is and the plot point. And you want to make sure that you're doing it in the proper order. Don't do it in the wrong order
Well, I
to where
love
it's confusing.
your idea about how you said you go chapter per chapter, and that's
Mhm.
paragraph per paragraph, because you could still do that, and maybe you end up with 11 pages, and they like, hey, it's 3 pages or less. That's okay, because then at that point you can go through and you can start cutting out the meat that you don't need. You keep those key points there. You can tighten it up to meet what they get, but get everything out in that storyboard line so that you know for a fact that this is, explaining your entire book, and then you can sell it, then you can tighten it up.
Mhm. Yeah, and like I said, don't put things that aren't necessary, like little subplots, but definitely put in emotional arcs. Like, what is your character dealing with on this journey? What is his or her like emotional point and attachment to go in this direction? What is driving this force? Um, Also, you want to make sure you convey, um, oh, how the growth. So, like, if you have their emotional, what is going to shift? What's going to change? What is going to open their mind? Like, what is this point? Um, you want to definitely reveal all those things in your synopsis. You want to make sure that you're conveying the essential points that are straightforward in a language that someone who's never read your book can understand what you're trying to draw them into. So don't assume that because you tell me it is a science fiction book that I'm going to know everything about your new world. So maybe give me some of the points that I should keep in mind. You don't, like I said, not sub, but let me know it's on a different planet. Let me know why it's on a different planet. Let me know what are some of the things that this new planet, the people on this planet are facing. So I already know ahead of time what the conflict's going to be if it has to do with why they come to this resolution at the end. Like we've been kind of like Hunger Games. You've got like these 12 separate lands that everybody's got a certain job or whatever, but there's a secret 13 that they don't think exists, but later on you find out it exists. What's the conflict? Well, they're doing this because they're trying to prevent war. They're having these Hunger Games because they're trying to prevent this uprising again. Okay. So it's kind of like the same idea. Like they have all these different things and it's keeping law and order, but like, why is there going to be an uprising? Like, why should there be an uprising? If it's keeping order, why is this all happening? So it kind of draws them in. Like, I want to know why are we changing what's working? So that's kind of like, you're tailoring that to who you're writing your synopsis to. Like, what is drawing me in?
Yeah, so every line will draw them in because now, as they're reading the synopsis, they don't know the overall arc of your book.
Mm-hmm.
So that they'll read through this, and by the end, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing." Now, if you're doing a summary, it's like, "Hey, the movie Rockstar, man, it's so cool. It was based on Judas Priest, and it had Mark Wahlberg in it, and he's this cover band singer, and then the main band loses their singer, and they see a tape of him, and he gets to join the band." And that's kind of what I would say as a summary. But if I was
Mm-hmm.
going into detail, I'd be like, hey, he wanted to do this. The main singer, they found out he was gay, and they weren't happy with that. And he was wearing a wig, and he got fed up with the road. And then this cover band singer joined the band and had to have this big male persona, like I'm all into women. And I would like get into detail with that to show like why did this singer leave the band? Why did this new singer join? Why did he eventually leave?
Mm-hmm.
You want to walk you right through the entire process. So, and that's one of my favorite movies. That's why I mentioned it.
You have a lot of those favorite movies.
Joe Dirt, Rockstar,
Mm-hmm.
Billy Madison.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh man, what's the wrong? Deuce Bigelow, Mel Gigolo, Waterboy. What am I thinking? I guess everybody knows I'm immature now. So,
No, well, I can't say that because my husband likes a lot of those movies too. So he's
okay,
a huge.
well,
He
he's
likes
immature
Adam
too.
Sandler movies, so that's usually not my cup. Not that I don't like those movies. It's just not my thing. I like suspenseful, like mystery type stuff. So I'm not necessarily always into that. I'm always looking for like the suspense stuff or the limited British series. I love British TV, like their series. So they have like I love their stuff. They put a lot of time and effort into their episodes. They're almost like movies. Every episode's almost like a movie. They're so well done.
Except for the last season of Game of Thrones, but we mentioned that
But
before.
that doesn't count. That was kind of more American. That wasn't
No,
Brit.
yes, it was.
Was it?
Yes,
Like the writers and producers were all British?
I'm pretty sure they were. Maybe I'm
Okay,
wrong.
I'm Googling that because I
Okay.
know that a lot of the actors were, but I didn't
Yeah.
know that the guys that did it
Maybe I'm
were.
wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought it was filmed overseas and it came
Oh, it
out.
probably was. Oh, yeah, it probably was. But like, I think the entire thing was done really well, except for the last season. So yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
but
me too.
yeah, we've said that before. All right. Proofread and revise. We've stressed that before with books, with your query letter, with anything and everything you write that you are putting out there. Make sure you proofread. Make sure you revise. This is like a piece of writing. You want to make sure check grammatical and spelling errors. You want to make sure you're putting out, you know, uh, the right stuff. Read it out loud, like I've suggested before, so you can make sure it's flowing. Take out unnecessary words. Don't think that you can just, vomit the thesaurus onto your page and it makes you sound smart. No, it just makes you look like you don't know what you're doing.
And,
Go ahead.
and to interject, Game of Thrones is an American fantasy drama television series created by David Benioff. I don't know how to say that, but I know it's George R. R. Martin. So I had
Yeah,
to put that squirrel in there so that I.
but it was okay. 1 point for Carissa again.
Yeah.
But George R. R. Martin, like his books after season 4, not all that story was after season 4 was all made up by those guys. So,
well, of course, George, catch up. Don't spend 17
his
years
books
writing
were like
another book.
thousands of pages long.
I know, but sit down at your keyboard and do it.
Well, I think he advised them for the most part about what he thought he wanted it to do, but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there.
But that's why I like Terry Brooks better, because that guy just kicks him, spits him out left and right. Sorry, George.
So here's an idea. So something you can do is practice selling your book to people, like record yourself. So maybe talk to a friend, like, okay, this is what I want to just press record and say, this is what my book is about. It starts out this way and and just sell your friend on this book. Then go back and listen to it and write down what you said.
Yeah, now you talking long form or short form?
Put in Grammarly and
Are you
have
thinking
it like help you.
synopsis or summary when you're doing this to your friend, or both?
Well, so what you could do is before your friend reads your manuscript, the one that you trust, you could do a summary, record that, have them read it, and then give them a synopsis of it, or have them give you a synopsis of all the takes of what they thought the book was about.
Oh my gosh. You just brought when Daniel Middleton and I were writing together, I would call him chapter per chapter. It's like, dude, this is what I wrote. And it may be a half an hour going through a chapter. He's like, I am so excited. How did you come up with that? So I guess I've practiced that in the past.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, that's something you could do. It's like once you've had someone read through it, say, okay, I want you to tell me what you think the book is about. And then kind of record that and say, okay, this is what they told me about it. And then fill in the gaps that they may have missed, points that you want to make sure that are expressed. That's a good point, to do. Because you always want to have someone that you trust, whether it's your spouse or a friend that you know is going to give you honest feedback to tell you, this is what I saw. This is what I read. This is what I think it's about. You know what I mean? Because sometimes what you think you wrote about may not be what the audience actually reads. So.
Indeed.
Yes.
There you go. Synopsis, summary.
Yeah.
One's a little heavier than the other.
Yes. Yeah. And that's another thing in a synopsis. You want to make sure that you do put in those unique details that may not be in the summary, like little cookies that somebody wants to take a morsel of, like you don't want it boring. You want it captivating. You want it to be something that is going to stick with the person that's reading it. I talked about this in the query episode that I met with an author named Willow, and we talked for 2.5 hours. And I told you this before we started recording, that when she sat down and talked with me, I don't read fantasy. I don't read fantasy. I don't write fantasy. I don't read it. I love to watch it, but I don't read or write it. So when she sat down and was telling me about her fantasy novels, I was like, I want to read this. Like, I'm into this book, because when she was selling it to me, I was like, this sounds amazing. Like, just her way of expressing these characters. I already, in my mind, I can still see how she said them to me. So for me, that's the thing that sells me on wanting to read something, is like, bring me in, give me those little morsels. Show me those little things that you want me to remember, that wants me to know more about, I want to read this. So when you're writing your synopsis, basically sell it to the person that you're writing it to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, in this day and age, literary agents, publishers, movie producers, they do not have time to read through an entire 400-page manuscript. So how can you allow them to read through it in 2% of the time? Mm-hmm. So that's what you're doing. It's like a microwavable version of it. As far as a summary, it's like, how can you get your buddy interested in reading this book or watching this movie? So think of it like that. That's the big difference.
Plus, when you write a synopsis, when you write your first book, you're going to have a lot of challenges with fix this, fix that. Let's rearrange this. If I just send you my first few chapters, you may not be interested because you have no idea where it's going. Correct. I don't know what you're building, but the synopsis is going to tell me where you're going. And so it's nice to have the synopsis to go alongside with a few chapters that you're submitting, so they can see you as you're writing, your capability of writing. But it's also going to be like, okay, they haven't got to the point, but I can see that this is going to turn into something good, or this is something I can work with. So even if your writing needs fine tuning, they may say, okay, this is something I can see we can work with, and we can make it to what your synopsis was promising me. People can't hear your head shaking, Jamie.
Correct.
You're nodding your head. Not everybody watches this on YouTube, but
I keep forgetting.
Yes.
Every time we film, I'm in the podcasting mode. I'm like, oh,
because you see us, and I'm like, not everybody can see your head shaking. By the way, his head's always shaking.
Yes, that's like a bobblehead. It doesn't stop. I need a bobblehead of me. It just be a mini me.
All the people are hearing is your silence.
Yeah.
Is Jamie still there?
All right, so there you go. Start writing your synopsis or your summary or both. Plan both.
Yeah, so just be careful as you're writing that you follow the key points. Do your research, who you're sending it to, what they're requiring, and make sure that when you read it, it flows. And make sure that you are double checking your grammar and stuff. And even have somebody else read it and say, blind read with someone that's not read your book, someone that you can trust. Blind read your synopsis and say, what do you think? Is this confusing? Is this inviting you in? Give some feedback.
And I know you suggested someone you trust, like your spouse or something. And I'm cool with that, but the only problem I have is you really gotta gauge, is this going to be somebody who's like, oh yeah, it's great, it's great. You want somebody that's going to be
I said
flat.
trust. I said
Yeah,
not someone that just,
agrees
I
with
said
you.
trust, not fluff.
Yes, you don't want those. It's like the teenager who's singing and they're like, their parents like, oh, she's a songbird. It may
Mm-hmm.
be, it may not be.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yep, I've been there many a
That would be
times.
me. Yeah, that's something that my mom says I can sing. I think she's tone deaf because I can't sing. She tells people like, "Oh yes, she can sing." I'm like, "No, no."
Oh yes, she can write books. No, no, but you can
Well,
write
so I
books.
would do karaoke with my aunt. My aunt Lisa and her daughters, they can sing, but they got like more of that Reba McEntire sound to them. Um, and like that sound where I can sing like one of the Judds and the singer from Four Non Blondes. So I have a different sound.
Well, I'm a cross between Fergie and Jesus. If
Wow,
you if
you think your voice is Jesus? Wow, that's
then you don't even know what movie I'm referencing.
oh no, it's probably one of your other movies that I don't know.
Step Brothers.
I haven't watched
Wow,
that
your
either.
voice is like a cross between Fergie and Jesus.
Oh my god. Yeah,
See,
I don't watch that stuff.
you're missing some of the greatest movies in the world.
Okay, how many have you watched Pitch Perfect?
No.
Uh-huh. See? I like that
Yeah,
movie. The
yeah,
girls in it. You watch the male comedy.
goofy
I like
movies.
the yes, it's different.
Yeah, well, maybe someday soon I'll give you a synopsis of all these movies.
Yeah.
Or a summary. Haven't decided yet.
Yeah, so my husband would watch stuff like that, and I'm like more into like girly
Well,
movies.
when he listens to this and he first hears me say Fergie and Jesus, he's going to be
He will.
like, yes!
He will. He probably will know that.
I loved your reaction, though. All
I was
right.
like, what?
I
Kidding.
guess that's enough squirrels for today.
Yeah, so you open this podcast, you get to close it.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Hey, if you got any questions, just email us at alwaysrightpodcast@gmail.com. You can also go to alwaysrightpodcast.com. I must mess that up.
Wait,
If
did
you
you
want,
say that twice? Did you?
I said
Oh no, you
always
did. Yeah,
right podcast at
yeah, you
gmail.com
did.
to email us. But if you
Yes.
want to check us out, go to alwaysrightpodcast.com. We have all those little icons down there so you don't have to search for us on YouTube, on iTunes, anywhere. We're going to be right there for you to click, 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 to follow us on Instagram. We're there. We're there. We're everywhere. So that's why you don't let me open and close these, because I'm not as professional as you. So, but it's always fun. It's always
Yes,
fun.
you
So
did a
yeah,
great
but seriously, definitely check us out. Check out every episode if you're just
share,
finding us
like,
now. Yeah,
yeah.
share, like, but go back through. If you're a beginning author, or if you're a songwriter, there are podcasts for you. Start with podcast number 1. Go through all of them. We promise you're going to find something that's going to help improve your writing and keep you focused on writing, because we want you to always write.
Yes.
And I am Jamie Vendera, and this is my co-host,
Carissa DeLay. Thank you for listening, and until next time, always right.
Yep, correct. Something like that.
Yes.